A few weeks ago, I designed some ponies for my concept of the Gen 6 My Little Pony series, and some of you guys wanted me to expand on the idea a bit more since my focus for that video was just designing the main 6. So for this video, I'll expand on a couple of the characters as well as design a couple more that would be relevant to the Gen 6 lore. Speaking of which, I want to start by talking about the basic synopsis of Gen 6. Do bear in mind though that my knowledge of My Little Pony is limited by what I've seen in the series, so the things that I'll reference will not include the comics because I've never read them. And I'm also going to pretend that Gen 5 doesn't exist in this universe because I've never watched the series. Anyways, to the synopsis. We follow the story of Princess Milky Way and her friend who travels across different dimensions to help others. Whether it's to stop the deforestation of the Gloom Gloop forest in the slime dimension or helping Farmer Fungi harvest his space mushrooms, they are there to help and spread the magic of friendship. Of course, if this was a real series, I'll probably change the synopsis, but that's just my idea for the lore so far. And moving on to the actual video, I want to focus on Princess Milky Way's character, and I want to introduce her parents to you guys, starting off with her father, King Andromeda. Now, I actually wanted the main character's parents to be a bit more involved this time, and we haven't really seen any male alicorns in the Gen 4 series, so I wanted to design one for this generation. In here, I wanted him to be a supportive, tired father who's just trying really hard to balance his work and family. Only thing is, he's struggling a little bit just because Princess Milky Way is quite the adventurous princess and often lands herself into a lot of trouble. He tries to teach her useful, helpful, complex magic and guides her to be a gracious queen that would come to rule Equestria one day. However, he does worry a lot since Princess Milky Way doesn't seem all that interested in being a good queen and would prefer to have fun than learn about her future responsibilities, which I would say I quite understand. To be fair, he did spoil her a lot when she was growing up. Every time she said that she was bored about learning magic, he would just stop her lessons immediately and just play with her. So this is basically karma for all of those years of spoiling her. Also, like Princess Flurryheart, he was also born as an alicorn. Growing up though, he dedicated himself into magical studies just like Twilight, and he was known to be the silent prince since he never mingled or showed himself in public a lot when he was a young pony. However, once he met his wife Lunatides, his personality shifted and people started seeing him around more often, and of course I'll show you guys what Queen Lunatides would look like in a bit. For his character design, since his name is Andromeda, I of course based him on the Andromeda galaxy, the nearest galaxy to the Milky Way galaxy. And I did this to emphasize his closeness with Princess Milky Way and how well they get along as a father and daughter. So I gave him this navy blue coat to represent the space and gave him golden hair and eyes because a lot of images I see of the Andromeda galaxy seems to always have this golden glow around it. So I thought having the kind of golden accent would suit him as well and also brings out that royalty vibes. And as you guys could see, he does have those starry hooves or starry legs, very similar to what Princess Milky Way has in her design if you guys remember. And yeah, she definitely got those from her father's side of the family. Queen Lunatides is the wife of King Andromeda and the mother of Princess Milky Way, and despite her being an alicorn now, she was actually born as a Kelpie pony from the seashell shores. She didn't grow up in royalty like King Andromeda, but she is from a humble family that took care of the Great Kelpie Reefs. So in this world, there are 7 great reefs, including the Kelpie Reefs, and you guys can probably figure out where I got that from, and each one hid a piece of the Mother Pearl. And this Mother Pearl is like a magical pearl that was known to grant any wish once put together, and an evil pirate wanted the pearl to grant them great power, so they stole 6 of them whilst destroying the other reefs. So Lunatide stood up against them, not only to protect the Kelpie Reefs, but also to stop them from committing their evil plans. And after defeating the pirate, Lunatides put all of the pieces of the Mother Pearl together and wished to restore the 6 reefs the pirate destroyed. And for her heroic acts, the Mother Pearl also granted her the powers of an alicorn, and now she's known as the Queen of the 7 Reefs. So that's a snippet of her backstory, and can you guys tell that I've used Princess Ariel from Disney's Little Mermaid as inspiration for her design? I really do love the kind of contrast between, I think it was kind of minty or light blue to red color, so I wanted to kind of use that as an inspiration, but instead of a complete copy, I did use a kind of pastel green mint color instead, and her hair color would be this kind of coral pink color, and the both of them still contrast, and it's such a nice contrast as well. I really do love the color palette. But one thing you guys might notice is that she doesn't look like a sea pony, but that's because in my head, Kelpies look like regular horses but with water vibes. So I didn't want her to look too different from a regular pony, so I gave her this aquatic tail, which I thought is quite cute. And as you guys might guess now, yes, this does mean that Princess Milky Way is half Kelpie, and you will see her Kelpie form a bit later on. And another thing that I want you guys to take notice of is that she's wearing the same star earrings as King Andromeda. And that's because Princess Milky Way actually made those earrings, but she only made one pair, so each of them gets the other kind of part of the earring, so they're now wearing one earring each. And I think that's really cute. I think that's one way that King Andromeda and Queen Mngo.tea show their love for their daughter. This next piece, I want to show you guys a snippet of the royal family's interaction, because I mentioned earlier that Milky Way is a bit of a troublemaker, which stresses my guy Andromeda out. But on the contrary, Mngo.tea is a bit more relaxed and believes that Milky Way will come around when she's ready to learn. She's kind of like the mediator between the two, and she understands both her husband's and daughter's perspectives. However, in this scene, Milky Way found a baby space leviathan and wanted to keep it as a pet, which Andromeda does not like, and Mngo.tea is just a bit worried for their safety. A space leviathan is basically a giant destructive space octopus that's known to eat planets, and somehow Milky Way found an egg and it hatched into a baby space leviathan, and now it thinks that she's its mother. This scene is just a sketch. You guys could probably see that I've reused the art I've already made for King Andromeda and Queen Mngo.tea, but I just wanted to give out a small sketch because I thought it was such a funny and cute addition to show how their family dynamic works. And yes, she does get to keep the destructive octopus, because remember, Andromeda spoiled her, so she gets to keep it as long as she could use magic to control it once it grows. So I guess it's kind of a leverage for her to learn actual magic as well. To further showcase Milky Way's thirst for adventure, I want to do something I haven't done in this channel before, and it's to draw a full scene with a background. So if you guys don't know, I'm a character concept artist, so I draw and design characters. I don't typically dabble in backgrounds, and in fact I don't like drawing backgrounds at all, but for the sake of this video, I wanted to draw some more concept art to really show what kind of pony Milky Way is. So in this scene, I wanted her to explore this barren land with an abandoned, broken down stony castle. I wanted it to feel like we were actually catching her landing on the outskirts of the castle, and she's just kind of looking in awe at the scenery, and she's definitely a thrill seeker, so she will defo spend the night in what she thinks is a haunted castle. Now, while drawing this scene, I tried to go through a bunch of YouTube tutorials in how to draw simple backgrounds, and a lot of the things I saw in those videos are things I've learned back at GCSE art, so it's nothing new, but it's nice to have a refresher. I did opt in for a more simple cartoon-like background, so it's easier for me, and though I don't think it's 100% amazing, it's alright for someone who doesn't draw backgrounds often. And of course, I'll practice some more in the future as I go on, but one life hack that really helped me was drawing the background first and then inserting the character in. I think I got this from Lavender Town, and this is such a good life hack for a beginner, and it helps with proportions as well. It makes it feel like the character is actually part of the scene. You guys will see later on, once I actually colored this scene, that I opted for a more warm orangey tone, and this is to indicate that it's a sunset scene, just because to me that feels like it's a bit more of an adventure, because as I said earlier, she just glided down and she's looking at this abandoned haunted castle, so it's kind of like, oh, she spent all day traveling here, so by the time she explores the castle it'll be night, something like that. That was my train of thought for it. But I also chose that color palette just because I felt that she was going to stand out in it a bit more, since it's kind of contrasting colors. But I do admit that the colors I've chose isn't typically the kind of colors you would see in My Little Pony, at least not the what I would call the regular scene, because typically we see kind of green hills, green grass with blue sky, and to be fair, could have made my life so much easier just by copying that, but I really did want to practice in this video as well. So I'm going to stop talking now so you guys can actually enjoy the speed paint, and after this I want to show you guys another scene that I drew. So if you guys remember, Brick Break is one of the characters I drew in my last video, and he's actually one of the main 6 that represents chivalry, and he's also Princess Milky Way's personal guard. If this series were to be real, he will be one of the first ponies to be introduced, and he will be very close to the princess. However, before working as a guard in the castle, he was just a regular pony that sadly lost his family. Don't want to go into too much detail about his past in this video, but I thought I should mention him since he is quite an important character to Milky Way's life. He was appointed to protect Milky Way and be her reasonable conscience whenever she's thinking of doing something potentially dangerous. And at the same time, Milky Way is there to remind him to let loose and have fun, so they kind of balance each other out here very, very well. So as I said earlier, he did unfortunately lose his family in a tragic incident, so he did dedicate his life to train to be stronger so that he can protect those he cares about. And at some point he did get accepted in being a guard at the castle, but because of his past, he's not very smiley, but nonetheless he is a loyal, smart, kind and dedicated individual. So for this scene, it is going to be a bit angsty, but I did want to emphasize that sadness that he felt when he lost his family, and though he lives in the castle now in the knight's quarters, he still sometimes visits his old home once in a while. So you guys could see that there's still pictures in the house, there's still toys and furniture, but they're a bit worn out, and you could see a bit later on in the colouring scene that they have basically lost their colour. Like the previous scene with Milky Way, I did want to tone out the scene so that Brick Break stands out, so it's kind of like emphasizing the fact that he's all alone. And I don't want to make you guys too sad now, so I'll just stop talking and let you guys enjoy the speed paint. I do have a couple more sketches I want to show you guys before the end of this video, so make sure you stick around for that as well. So in here I want to show you guys how Milky Way and Brick Break met. It's just a sketch, but I thought this would be relevant to the two characters. So after completing a series of tests, Brick Break passed all of the requirements of being a royal knight, and due to his performance in the test, King Andromeda thought that he would be a good fit to be Milky Way's personal guard. Again, she is quite adventurous, so she would need someone the king and queen can trust to keep an eye out for her. Milky Way's mum, Mngo.tea, has also found out about Brick Break's past and thought that Milky Way would help him somehow find happiness again. And given how close they are in age, she did convince the king to consider Brick Break for a more specialized role instead of just being a regular castle guard. One side note in here though, I feel like I made them both a bit too similar in size. And you know, this is why when you guys are drawing, right, you need to just shut your eyes for a bit and look away for a good minute, because I didn't really realize this until I'm looking at the scene right now. Because in my head, Brick Break has been training like literally for a good few years by this point, so he would need to be taller and buffer, but for some reason I made them both the same size, which isn't proportionally accurate in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to move on from that for the time being because it is just a sketch, but I wanted to draw Milky Way giving Brick Break a tour of the castle, and as you guys can see, she's having fun meeting someone new, but Brick Break is a little bit more stoic. Little did the princess know that he's already memorizing all of the shortcuts around the castle that would allow him to travel faster, plus he's seen all the areas that the princess used to sneak out of the castle, which would be useful in case he needs to chase her down in the future. I would say I really do love this scene, especially when I get to see all of these kind of original characters interact with each other, which makes them feel a bit more real. And yeah, it's really cute seeing these two interact with each other as well. Alright, so this video is getting long and I'm getting a bit tired, and I bet you guys are getting tired too, so I'm going to do one more sketch. So, do you guys remember how I mentioned earlier that Queen Mngo.tea is actually a Kelpie, which makes Princess Milky Way a half Kelpie? So I wanted to design what she looks like in her Kelpie form. Again, this is just a concept, so I am just doing a quick sketch of this. It's not going to be a full rendered kind of artwork or anything like that. I just realized that you guys could hear that bump. That was my hand hitting the mic, and I can't be asked to redo that voiceover, so I'm sorry. Anyways, her Kelpie form is very similar to kind of the way her mum looks, but she can turn in and out of her Kelpie form when she touches salt water. It has to be salt water. If it's just regular, plain fresh water, mineral water, spring water, it doesn't work on her. Yeah, it has to be salt water because her mum's from the ocean, something like that. And it's giving me H2O vibes, if you guys remember that show. If you don't, I'm going to remind you, it's basically a bunch of these girls that can turn into a mermaid, and basically any water that touches them would turn them into mermaids and stuff like that. It's kind of a similar situation, but Milky Way could only turn into a Kelpie if she touches salt water. But unlike the H2O series, everyone in the kingdom knows that she's half Kelpie, so she doesn't need to hide this at all. Everyone in the kingdom knows, so there's no drama there. And basically, in her Kelpie form, she just grows the tail and scales replace her coat. Other than that, there isn't really much of a big difference. But I think it's really cute. I think it really makes the character a bit more interesting that she can go in and out of a certain form. Well, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoy this little expansion of my Gen 6 My Little Pony universe. And if you guys do like this and would like me to make more similar content in the future, make sure you hit that like and sub button and let me know what your ideas are for Gen 6 My Little Pony in the comments down below. And of course, I'll see you all next Mango Monday. Bye!